And I will say welcome everybody to the November 13th, 2020 session of the Domain Social. For those of you watching down the road on YouTube, you can always join us live by subscribing at thedomainsocial.com. So thedomainsocial.com, and click this button, the link that says subscribe, and subscribe. And you'll get an email, 24, 40 hours before, and then a few minutes before with the link to join us. It's that simple. And the socials I will put up on the link video now. You don't have to worry about it now. And that's it. So on that note, I think Michael had just a general topic that I don't know if we talked about in the last couple of weeks. We probably have, but he was just wondering how everyone's domain businesses are going now under COVID. But actually, before we get to that, I think, have any of you, be more precise, have any of you in the last week had like a significant surge in either sales or in demand? It's like since the American election was quote unquote declared. Because like for the last week, I've had like a significant amount of offers. I closed one sale already, and like night and day difference, like 4 times volume type of thing. So I'm just asking the question to all of you. Anyone?
I certainly have seen a higher volume of inquiries, probably 4 or 5x.
Yeah.
And the other important thing is that they're not like lowball offers. They're actually sober offers. Like I think people are researching before they make an offer, which is really interesting. I mean, it cuts down on the time. I find I respond more favorably if it seems like we're kind of close to something I would nibble on, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like that's for me too. It was like they were all like, it was from different venues and like 4-figure offers. I had one from Network Solutions, their buy service. Another one from what are they? Oh geez, Domain Agents. Is that what it is? Domain, something like that. Had the one still went through was After Nick, and I had a couple from Epic. And it's just like all over, it was like, wasn't just one thing, and it was great. I don't know. Hope you all having the same thing.
You want me to stop doing that, Harv?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't just one person messing around, unless they went everywhere. But at different domains, different everything like that. None of you guys, it's just me and Jonathan that are seeing that, or
what kind of names?
Just typical two-word.coms. This is my usual thing. Or what was one of them? One was like merchantology, so it's like not really 2-word. It's a 1-word brandable. But yeah, what else?
Or if I will say that there is something about getting offers from different places that gives a hint to a breadth or a realness to our business, you know what I mean? As opposed to maybe there's one channel that's really working, but is it really happening? And I think even if it's just, like you say, 2 or 3 different places, a domain agents or like you say, NetSol buy service or whatever, those used to be great. Anything that hints at a breadth, even over the course of a week, you start kind of telling you, well, maybe this is real, maybe this isn't just me. And I think, now, don't get me wrong, it'd be great to get 6 offers from After Nick, and who cares about everything else? But yeah, anything that hints at a breadth and a functioning market, I think is a new level of boost, I know, for me. So even though it didn't happen this week, even though I sold a ton of names this week, but I think the breadth from different places seems to do well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. It was like, yesterday was the first day of the week I didn't get a 4-figure offer. I'm like, okay. Like some of them were like $1,000 in a domain that was worth significantly more in my books, but still, it was still, when you're opening offers 1,000, the person starts to be serious, What about the rest of you? Any you guys, were you having a drought, or speak up, guys? Don't feel shy.
Eric, Arif,
Yeah.
was this on Buy It Nows any, or just all make offer names?
Well, they were all offers.
No, I know, but
I
were
only
they?
have
Were
I've only
any of them
closed
had
one
set?
sale so far of them.
Did any of them have Buy It Nows when they made an offer, or were they all make offer name?
Oh yeah, no, no, they were all make offer.
Okay.
They all make offer. Yeah. The one that I sold through Afternic, that was 3K, and I had it listed for 4 or 4.5. But when I reached out to Afternic, I asked them, "Is this a client you're directly in touch with, or is it through the network? You know, basically through another registrar?" And the person I got in touch with at Afternic was upfront and told me no, it was through their network. So I weighed the pros and cons, and I know that basically, if it's a negotiation, it goes through the partner network. Then it's like, okay, I have to counter. I send my counter to Network Solutions to Afternic, and then Afternic contacts whatever that other registrar is, and that registrar contacts the potential buyer, and then back the other way. I told myself, yeah, I mean, I already had it listed for 4.5. With a high chance of losing a sale at 3, I'll just take the offer at 3. And often I negotiate, but in that case, it was like the risk reward was just, it was too easy. Plus, it was a domain I got at closeout when I started domaining in 2016. So it was like, yeah, I'll take that one. Thank you. And money's in the account, in the bank account, so that one's a done deal.
Yeah, maybe I can say something about the traffic side of the industry.
Yeah.
The traffic side of the industry, we're seeing some quite big changes due to COVID, where during COVID, the direct advertising networks really suffered because the likes of the travel and finance and that sort of stuff, those sort of market verticals collapsed. But they're now swinging back. And so they're paying a lot more than Google now again. So we're seeing sort of across the whole of COVID, we've seen basically a boom in traffic revenues from domain traffic because more people are coming online, more businesses have come online. They need good quality traffic, and that's what domains provide.
Is swing back? Is it with the old type of advertising, or is it the new ones? The new businesses have gotten on since.
Yeah, I think what's happened is that the direct advertising networks, because travel definitely hasn't come back yet, the direct advertising networks have actually found other market verticals that have become very profitable for them, and are bidding on a wider range of traffic. Yeah, so that's been good. So I'm now that I'm back fit and healthy, I plan on doing my weekly video update, which is basically the status of the monetization industry, and releasing that. It's actually really quite interesting to see the stats. I'm a stats guy. I like my numbers, and to see what's actually happening is each week is absolutely fascinating.
Cool.
I don't know how many people.
Mike, I got to believe that as much as you hate to see travel decline, you've had probably some industries that old, boring supermarket, pasta, spaghetti sauce, a bunch of staples that never really had to maybe hone their digital advertising strategy. It was always about pay the store for shelf space, be at eye level or something. And now they've had to come into this new game of someone's on Amazon. How do you catch that customer and get them to go order it for delivery? So I would think you would have new industries coming in and some surprisingly boring old line businesses, because all of a sudden they're having to pay attention to digital, and the old traditional manufacturers representatives, all those layers that got disintermediated everywhere, those companies now can go direct to the consumer. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think what we saw in the stats was back in March, there was a real shock that hit the economies of the world, and particularly those that went back in the first round of lockdowns. And we then saw a whole lot of small to medium-sized businesses come online and begin demanding traffic, and that accelerated the basic what was being paid for traffic. It really accelerated upwards, and we could see that coming through in the stats. And a lot of these businesses, they've never been online before. And that's why you look at Wix's results and so forth like that, and they're booming as well, because they suddenly have this influx of new customers. The big corporates exited the market until about August, and we saw some of the big corporates are now coming back, and they're sort of wondering where the traffic went, and they suddenly discovering they're having to pay more for it because all these small to medium-sized businesses have been gobbling it up, across this period of time, just to survive. And it's been really interesting just to see what's going on, and see it play out on the numbers. Yeah, so I think that we're in for a more turbulent times ahead.
Hey, Mike, I think I heard something in that. Sorry to cut you off there. I think I heard you saying that like the institutional people who have been buying terms now are faced with sort of a thundering herd, sort of an influx of new entrants.
Correct.
Right? And so they can't coast anymore on their usual spends and things like that. So it's causing a bit of a change. Is that right?
It's causing a big change, yeah. In fact, we saw it because most people, they immediately go to Google to buy traffic, particularly small to medium-sized businesses. You're new to this sort of space. Oh, I need to get a website up. Oh, the thing called Wix or something like that, or WordPress, whatever, and I'll just go and get my website up. Now I need to get people to go to my website. How do I do that? I go to Google. Yeah, and so we saw Google's numbers really accelerate upwards.
Well, so Mike, I guess the next kind of logical two steps on that is, well, I'll fast forward right through the maze to the cheese on this, right? Will we see a new sort of surge where that causes pay-per-click revenue to somehow come back to relevance for us? Or to, like, will that ultimately let the domain owner who they may have gone away from parking domains in the bias of something else, may want to come back and review pay-per-click? And I know, you run a parking program, but I know that you typically will give us a neutral sort of just informational answer.
Yeah, no, my advice to domain investors is, when you look at your portfolio, don't say, oh, I have a portfolio of domains for sale. Like, every domain is for sale. What I would do, though, is segment it and say, okay, these 10% of domains I'm going to monetize and also put a sale banner at the top. These 90%, I'm going to put them on Dan.com, after Nick, and all the different marketplaces and so forth like that. What we're seeing is a lot of people, they get their domains and they treat them as one thing rather than multiple things. If you want to extract the maximum value from your domains, then you've really got to treat them as different and segment them into what business model is most appropriate for that domain, and that maximizes your revenue. And that's our advice to people. Like, I had a conversation with a guy just the other day, and he had, I don't know, I think it was like a couple thousand domains, and I said, leave these 200 with us. The rest of them, take them away and maximize your opportunity to sell them. There's no point, because they didn't have any traffic. But the 200 allowed him to pay for his renewals for all of them. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, we are seeing continued growth in this area. A lot of people think domain monetization is dead. It's not dead. In fact, I did a video on this very topic on Masterclass Lessons, and where it was, is domain monetization dead? No, it's not dead at all.
No, sure, Mike. I mean, the question really, I think, begs, it didn't die, but you know, it was one of those things where it slowed its hibernation to a low pulse, right? So are we going to start to see, you know, a little bit more detectable signs of life in that? And where it really, I think, is important to look at is that we've had to deal with, I call it the long curve, but essentially, you know, the really good names are monetizing better and better. The stuff that is, you know, 2 to 3 keywords or things that are further out into the long tail would get flatter and flatter and flatter. So will this transformation of digitalization at gunpoint, as I call it, where you've got a stronger competition for keywords, do you think that's going to start to improve, maybe raise the overall curve up a little bit for people, you know,
Yeah,
who may not have like, you know, generic single word names?
yeah, it already is.
Okay.
We're seeing that happening even right now. Because obviously what you're talking about is if you're getting paid more for the traffic, will it alter things? And the answer is yes. I can only speak on what we do, where we essentially auction the traffic off to the highest bidder every 100 milliseconds for every single piece of traffic. So we built systems for extracting the max amount of value from the traffic every 100 milliseconds. And that's that we've been doing that for like 13 years now. So it definitely is there. And a lot of people get surprised when I say to them, what's a traffic domain? And I say, any domain has one unique view per day. Why? Because if you've got a $10 registration fee roughly, then you've just got to get a few clicks per year and you suddenly pay for it. So one unique view per day. I hope that answers your question, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I've kind of gone away. Originally, pay-per-click was enough money to buy steaks. Then it became enough money to buy sandwiches. And then, you know, it was more like a bag of chips, right? And so if we're going to start to go back towards, you know, steak level income, it's worth, you know, some review. I do think the diversity you're describing is good, you know, to look at some of those. I've found within my own portfolio, for fear I'm dominating. I don't want you and I to dominate this conversation, right? I think there's other people. I would love to hear what other people think about this or what their experiences are. But if you're forecasting that, you know, for this foreseeable, like, you know, 30, 60, 120 days, or until we come back from the upside down of pandemic world, that we're going to start to see those changes, then they sound like sound logic. My wife has started moonlighting in a scuba shop that's near my house, and they have taken and made their store online because there's not as much foot traffic, and they still want to stay open. And they're right now looking at SEO and buying terms and getting traffic. So I'm seeing a practical, unrelated thing completely syncing up with your story, and I think it doesn't seem to escape sounding like it sounds practically applicable. I just want to see it manifest in better pay-per-click revenue. I love to offset my renewal costs, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't want to monopolize the conversation either. So if people have questions, feel free to ask. But I can just say that we have some clients doing in excess of $500,000 a month. Yeah, so and doing significant revenues per month and in this area, and it's nice recurring revenue. And that's the thing I love about it.
So what are other people seeing in pay-per-click? How many of you, so those of you with a camera on, I guess, raise your hand. And if you, there's a reactions button on many of the clients where you can do a thumbs up or something like that. How many of you are still doing pay-per-click? How many, either on a portion or some? Okay, I'm seeing some hands. I see a thumbs down. Okay, so Anthony, I got to call you out on that. What I want to hear what I saw Anthony Mitchell's hand down. I didn't know if there were others, but I want to hear about that. So what are you seeing?
I just was getting traffic revenue on Cedo, and it just petered out. So I stopped, and I'm really afraid of UDRPs on my domains. Not that I couldn't win them, but just the effort of having to go through it is a disincentive for me to do parking. I just like the control of being able to have a straight landing page. And I find I sell a lot more by just having a straight buy buy it now page than having ads on it.
Yeah, I guess the risk reward over the years has skewed more to that direction. Like before, when I guess people were making stake money, as Jonathan would say, it was probably maybe worth a little bit more of doing that. But yeah, I mean, when I like most of my acquisitions are through GoDaddy auctions, right? Expired domains. So like, by default, I usually, once I get them, once I land my portfolio, I just put them in parking until I do whatever is next. And I have to admit, my revenue's been pretty stable over the last few years, but like stable meaning not high. My like $100 a month, give or take, maybe a little bit less. But it's fun. It pays for basically 10 renewals. But it's 120 renewals a year. How many sales have I lost? Maybe a few, but that I don't know if it's worth it. There's a few that pay high, but aside from that, most of them are zeros. Now the real question.
I've gone through tests and trials, and I've come to the conclusion I got 5-10 domains that are worth parking, and they produce $50-$100 a month, and the rest just they produce pennies. So not even chips. Not even for the chips, I guess for the free peanuts. So I don't even, I park those 5-10 domains, and the rest I don't borrow the PPC. I just, it's not worth the production.
Yeah. Mind you, I'm assuming it's a little bit different when you put it on a platform where it's optimized a little bit more. I mean, like I'm sure if the same domains I was making money at GoDaddy, if I moved them over to ParkLogic or to any other platform, I'm sure I'll be making more money. The real question is how much. And how much of a hassle would be, and it's what it is. When you get the domains, you just click OK, go, and you can make more money elsewhere, but you never always end up doing that. How's the rest? Anybody else? Any parking stories?
Well, I have 10 or 15 that still make some money at Cedo, so I keep those there. This is probably just an individual experience, so don't generalize from this, but I tried ParkLogic, and Cedo deleted all my domains, not only the ones that have parking, but the ones that I just had listed there for sale. So there's some logistics when you do a lot of switching around that makes me just want to move those. And I finally just moved those 15 back to Cedo, and I use the Uniregistry Lander that has parking on it for my others, but I don't make much money off of those, and I may change that.
Yeah,
I'm trying the white label product from Squad Help, and I'm really impressed with that, but it's in beta, and I don't know how long it's going to last, and it's taking me forever to kind of move my domains over there.
Yeah, time, eh? Somebody's got to invent the 30-hour day.
I know you kind of moved to Squad Help from parking, if it's okay. I had a question about that because I'm kind of in the fourth inning with Squad Help Marketplace too. Still trying to figure out where the ranges are between just listing them and changing name servers versus what I can pay $1 for and $3 for and all that other stuff. Have you done any of the extras or the bonuses?
No, I mean, I have premium domains there where they create the logos, but they also set the prices to some extent, and I'm not real happy with some of their prices. They have a marketplace for brandable domains, and they know what these domains usually go for on their marketplace. Right now, I'm trying to upload these standard listings to be able to use their white label marketplace as my website. I mean, I've got this old website at healingsites.net that's hell to update, and it's not up to date. And so on healingsites.com, I'm using their white label marketplace, and I like the look and feel, and I like the functionality, and they only take 7% if you're selling through your marketplace. They don't take their 30% commission. And I've applied for a couple of contests. I mean, they have these contests where people who own businesses and are looking for brandable domains, they will let you submit your premium domains to this contest, And if you win $100 or something, but they also buy your domain. So that's gotten my domain in front of some people, and some of the ones that I think I'm in the running for, I had to sign an NDA, so I can't really talk about the details, but it's a weird system, and it wasn't designed for domain investors. It was designed for business people who are looking for a brand. So we kind of fit into their scheme in a different way. But if I feel like it's like learning a foreign language almost. If I ever get it all figured out, I think it's going to be worth doing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. I just posted 2 days ago now, I think it was. Or was it? Yeah, Wednesday. I posted the technical session that we had with Darpin here at the end of October. So that's up now. If you guys want to, well, don't watch it now, but tomorrow, go watch it, and go watch Meredith as well. But yeah, no, he answered a lot of questions there about the little ins and outs of Squad Help, and for sure it's not obvious. There's a lot of stuff there, right? And it's like try to even you got to figure out. I'm finally gotten organized with the prizes and stuff like that. And even for me, I was like saying, okay, with the points, Squad Help points, but they're not points, they're coins, right? But there are points. So it's
right.
Like there's points, there's coins, there's premium, premium is like the most overused word in all of domaining, right? I mean, every single domain is a premium domain. So the word becomes meaningless. It's like at GoDaddy, it's basically every domain on their auction platform that is owned by somebody is a premium domain. The only reason it's not is if it's an expiring domain. It's just, everyone uses that word, and it's like it's kind of loses its meaning. But sorry, yeah. Anyhow, but yeah, going to Squad Help, it's I know when I tried it 2 years ago, it was things were not that clear, and they've added more stuff since. They made it better, but it's also when you add more stuff, it's not always as obvious.
Yeah, I think like a lot of companies, and I've told so many of them this, they can envision that everyone's out there just waiting for them to send an email with an update with new stuff.
Yeah.
And most of us get an early recollection of what a company is, and we really don't keep track of the small evolving that happens. And especially at trade shows, people over-announce what they're going to be doing that isn't really live now.
Yeah.
And then in the intervening time, they can actually put that stuff out there, but you kind of lose track of it because when you looked and wanted it, it wasn't there, Yeah. So I find myself a lot of times going, oh, you guys finally did get that or something, or you did get that, or you did get that, because it's hard to keep track. So what I've been trying to tell Darpin is that for a lot of us that have stuff in bulk, and I know they've done the G Suite, but just not being able to delete names in bulk is something that if we were using the white label marketplace as our store, like Leonard's talking about doing, you'd want to be able to just delete 10 names at once.
Yeah.
Just be able to put them in, put a list in, 10, boom, and have them go, as opposed to either one at a time or somehow updating the whole database. So if you guys get a chance to reinforce that with Darpin at all or their team, that's the one area I think for the folks on the social they can improve on, is being more attentive to someone with their own marketplace with 600, 800, 1,000 names. And I just ran into bulk deleting this week because I sold a bunch of names this week. So I needed to delete 40 names, and it took a long time.
Oh, ouch. I can imagine. 40 domains. That's good.
I sold 60. Actually, I sold 63 domains this week.
Wow.
Nice.
That's amazing.
The domain outlet opened on Tuesday morning, and in 3 days we'll be up to 70 domains, I think, by today. So
good work.
That's been fun. I mean, they're all below $300, but
that's okay. It's wholesale, right?
It's outlet shopping. It's outlet shopping for domain names.
Yeah. Now the question is, do they all pay by PayPal?
Yes.
So I don't know if you guys all heard what happened this past week with NameBio, with Adam and Michael Subner, they got taken off PayPal, and then as of today or as of a few hours ago, they've gotten back on. They're one of the miracle few who got blocked and then made their case and got the right person and got unblocked, which is like a miracle.
That's such a like a kill everyone like God sort them out approach to some of the like dealing with certain things, right? And I'm going to put on my registrar hat for a second and explain that we are constantly put on our back heels by people that want to take down names because there are brands that aspire to have that name, or that some DNS researcher did some kind of ham-fisted data analysis and gave a false positive, and they think that you should take the name down or do some kind of action like this, and then let somebody kind of plead to get back added or things of that nature. It's very disruptive, and we are constantly fighting that similar type of battle to what's going on. So I really have a lot of empathy for what both Epic and NameBio and some of the other affected parties have been going through, because it's a bad approach to business to do it that way. I mean, it's got the best of intentions, but it's just a bit too aggressive of a way to attempt to solve some of the problems they may have been aspiring to solve.
You're talking about PayPal, you mean?
I'm talking about the PayPal thing. I'm talking about it in two contexts, right?
That's the problem with PayPal. I mean, they do some stuff to prevent fraud, but the problem is their blanket approach without any explanation or recourse in many cases. And like, I think they just got lucky. Like, they were the two of them who approached them, and one of them got through, and the other one got kind of stonewalled a bit. But it's not just PayPal. It's any big, like, if you have an issue with Facebook or with Google, like, who do you talk to? There's nobody to talk to, right?
Yeah.
You click support blang blang bloom, fill out a form, and one chance in 5 you'll get the appropriate answer. And oftentimes, especially with PayPal, their decision is what it is, right?
Yeah, it's kind of Kafka-esque to figure out your way to solving something you've been thrust into without any intention. The challenge is really when people don't take the time to solve problems at the lowest possible level, right? That is, that they want to say, okay, this is a problem, and let's just throw the biggest switch we can to solve that problem, because it does address the problem. But it's like, I don't know, any of you see the movie Die Hard, right? It's like when they shut off the power grid for Nakatomi Plaza, it let the thieves in, right? It was like, you don't do that. If my neighbor is pissing me off because they're playing music too loud, what I need to do is go knock on their door and not shut off the whole grid for my county, right? It's just, you have to solve these problems at the lowest possible level. And so, there's a lot of folks that are trying to fight the good fight to make sure that these are inelegant and overstepping type of solutions to real problems aren't the ones that get put into effect, and that there needs to be accountability to this type of action.
Yeah, Jonathan, I completely agree with you on the monetization side, because we manage a lot of domains. We have exactly this problem where we get notices all the time, and we get notices from both sides of the fence. One is a client could have bought a domain in the drops, and it was previously used for like copyright infringing reasons or something like that, but now it's a completely different owner, and yet the legal eagles are going after the new owner and want to shut them down, all that sort of stuff, saying, hang on a second here, there's no copyright infringing anything on this domain, and we would never have anything to do with that. And it's actually really frustrating dealing with some of these guys. And then on the other side of the fence is, on the advertising side, trying to eject bad advertisers out of the mix, so you can get rid of malware type things and that sort of stuff. And then you get these, dare I say, eager registries/registrars who go along and block the domain, which then makes it impossible to track down the bad advertiser, and that bad advertisers continues on. Yeah, it's actually really, it's a big challenge a lot of these issues. And it's one that we've begun embracing the domain security companies and educating them on exactly what actually happens. And we've got some good traction there, by the way.
There's an interesting and encouraging trend. One thing that happened in the COVID world, and as we kind of entered into the pandemic, there was, I'm kind of pivoting the conversation, and but it's encouraging news. People get very entrenched in their views, and especially, you know, depending on what your day job is and what you're hoping to accomplish when you're trying to solve problems. In COVID world, there was a big sort of ad hoc grassroots group of different people inside of registrars, inside of security companies, law enforcement. It was a collaboration, but it was an organic, unaccountable collaboration where the security researchers would make available their data research and in a format that you could pull down, and domain registrars and registries were invited into the conversation, and we all worked together to help shut off the bad stuff and come up with real data as far as like what is and isn't problems. Like there was a presumption, for example, security researchers, you get some folks who are kind of new to stuff, and they're like, okay, if I find, what I'll do is I'll look at a zone file, and if I find anything that says COVID in it, that's obviously somebody frauding somebody. They're going to try to sell, bad pharma, or they're going to try to, put out bad information or something of that nature. And that, what the reality of it was is, they wanted everybody to just shut those off and not allow those. And you saw some marketplaces like Sato or other places where they just won't allow names like that into the marketplaces. Good or bad, that's, the effect of these types of things. But what about like the community group or arm of the local city government that wants to share information about local pandemic resources, where that people can get tested, or what are the local statistics or things of that nature? That same axe cuts both sides of it. And through working with these folks in different areas, we've been able to refine and make more elegant, how to approach these situations, so that that thing that you're using, that tool that you're using to solve a problem, doesn't accidentally cut the wrong people, so that you can solve the problem correctly. That means less domain takedowns and things like that. And that's it's important that we do collaborate, even if we don't agree with people that are trying to solve problems. Like in the intellectual property world, I say this all the time. There's people that are trying to solve problems that are on their day job, and the more empathy we can have in listening to what they say, the better solutions can come of everything. So we're at the point still where people are blocking names for certain period of times if they contain certain strings, but the narrative is at least working with accurate data and is actually more elegant about taking down the wrong things and leaving the right things up. And it came through collaboration, and it resulted from this pandemic world. So that was actually I don't know if you look at a silver lining about, things that have been happening in the pandemic, other than higher domain sales and, maybe some adjustments in pay-per-click on an upwards tick. We're seeing people who would not normally collaborate under extraordinary circumstances working together to solve problems.
CEDO has this policy for not listing coronavirus domains, and it's illogical, and they are in no way qualified to look at a domain and see if that is just on the prima facie basis, whether or not that is a malicious domain or not. It's just all for public relations. I have some really nasty domain names. I have Mujahid, which means fighter in the way of Allah, and it's the slogan of Al-Shabaab, and I have both spellings. And CEDO has no problems with that. They won't run ads for it because the traffic's all garbage, but they will never take that domain down. Whereas other stuff, if they can recognize it, if it's in English, they'll ban that, and they think really highly of themselves. And Afternic is not too much different. They will ban a term in a singular and let the plural go. if they don't recognize it because it's in another language, they'll let it go, and yet they hold their heads high and think they're the little saints of the internet, and it's not true.
You know,
They-
I mean, I don't want to take away from what you've just said. One of the things when we first set up the sort of the core tenets of the ICA, the Internet Commerce Association, was there were people capitalizing on hurricane relief. And so one of the core sort of things that were the code of conduct were to not profit from human suffering. I don't know the specifics of it, but it may be that they're actually like following that in some way that was reasonably accomplished.
But Johnson, I think that's the point. Is it's almost like, great, you don't get brownie points for wading into the pool unless you bring your brain and do it in a responsible way, because otherwise you're just not accomplishing anything really, because you're not accomplishing it well. So my feeling was opening the door for an arbitrary nature of what can be listed in a domain marketplace without a process or anything, you know what I mean? It made it less commendable for me because of the execution being undisciplined and sporadic, you know? So I understand what you're saying, that, oh, there's some bad cases we can point to, but the whole thing is, this is our names and our cases. And, you know, if they don't want to run a marketplace, don't run a marketplace. But if you're going to step out and fight and do that for the first time in 20 years, you know, do it right, I guess, is all I'd say.
Yeah. My big issue is the sheer laziness of the automation. It's because it's like, yeah, sure, if you're going to look at them one by one and judge them and have a reason for your thoughts, yeah, I can understand it'd be gray zones and sometimes yes and sometimes no. But the problem is that they just have an algorithm with certain keywords that just blanket mine, just nuke everything with that keyword, and they don't even check it. They don't think about it. There's sometimes no recourse depending on the company, and it's just pure laziness. And the fact they add these words every now and then, COVID, I don't even know if it's about the COVID itself. I think it's more just them saying that, oh yeah, we're being responsible. But I mean, like GoDaddy auctions is a perfect example. I mean, I've seen domains go through those expirations that like horribly racist, like, you know, like kill all N-word, you know, or like gas the, you can figure out the rest, like call to actions on specific races that are like so over the top racist. I'm like, how did this stuff get through your filters? Like, yeah, I can understand that there's some domains like that where, well, maybe not the first one I said, but where the second one where individually there's no keyword that would trigger the blocking of that domain. But at the same time, you know, there should be enough in one of those keywords for it to go, okay, trigger this. Somebody should manually look at this. You know, it's like, you know, when a domain name has, especially when it has the N-word in it, like, yeah, there should be somebody at GoDaddy that checks all expiring domains that have the N-word in it to see whether it's you know, good or not. And because I mean, most of the time I think it wouldn't be good. I'm just saying, it's like they don't even have that. And like they say, oh, we have a system in place, but you know, at the end of the day, they have to be a little bit responsible both ways, both for stopping stuff that really is inappropriate, and also for the opposite, having a system in place where things can be let through. Because, you know, as you said, in the COVID case, there's plenty of domains that could be used in a way that's very positive, like very, very positive.
So I have pandemichealthcare.com, and
Yeah.
it's been sitting on Cito for years, and just in the last 9 months or something, it's been blocked. It's no longer showing, even though it's sitting there with a big red triangle next to it or something. Should I not be able to sell that?
That's the whole thing. Like, I mean, if their argument is, oh, you don't want to profit from the virus, well then ban every domain that has the word hospital in it. Ban every name that has the word doctor in it. Ban every, you know, it's like, we're, you know, I mean, anyways.
You know, Cito rejected my Beyond the Pandemic domain, and if you punch in pandemic on Cito, there's about 200 of them in there. So you're right; it doesn't make no sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the fact that they flag it doesn't bother me, but the fact that all these big companies flag them in a way that's automated with very little to no recourse, that bothers me. You know, it's like, yeah, if you want to blanket block everything, have a system in place where people can, you know, present their case and let it go through. Leonard, your domain, what's the domain again?
Pandemichealthcare.com.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's, I see nothing wrong with that domain at all. You know, it's going to be used to help somebody, you know?
I mean, I mean, maybe the .org would be better, and maybe I shouldn't try to make a million off it, but I'm not going to make that anyway. So I don't know. I mean, they're tough issues. I don't know what the answer is. It's just a little bit annoying to see a domain that's been listed on Cito for so long suddenly get delisted.
Well, and then you've got the issue where, you know, you get added to an RBL or things like that are impossible to fix or challenging to fix. So I have a domain, so like the real-time black hole list and things like that. You know, all it takes is one person sending a spam, forging your domain, and, you know, somebody just clicks, you know, the spam button on Google, it gets, you know, forwarded over in some automated fashion to these RBLs, and then you've got to figure out where to clear your name, for lack of a better term. So you're guilty until proven innocent, and you have to go through a long time figuring out even what court you get to argue on behalf of yourself for. But I have a domain specifically, which is virus.global. Okay, and I registered this I bought it in an auction at the London ICANN meeting in like 2014. So nothing tied to COVID, but I'm constantly getting people, you know, accusing me of profiteering off of the current, you know, human situation. And I'm like, man, if I had a time machine, I would not be farting around with domains right now. I would have bought a lot of Bitcoin, right? I don't know, you know, like, I just show them the registration date and then they're like, oh, sorry. Or they just don't even respond. But, you know, for Sato and some of the other activities that are going on, it's very difficult to do it in an elegant fashion. I mean, we've gone through and we're doing a lot of review of how do you do this in an elegant way so you don't have the wrong collateral impacts on people that are not bad actors, on people that are, you know, legitimate, good actors with value and purpose that is not, you know, to be filed in with the abusive stuff. And the problem is that it's expensive to do. It's either expensive in time or it's expensive in having to subscribe to services that do actually go out and do that extra work, you know, that have the data, the access to the data to help with that. You know, we as registrars see that a lot of times a domain doesn't get activated for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, right? So the domain being registered is not necessarily indicative of how it's going to be used, good or bad. And we're not in the pre-crime business, right? That was a scary movie. I don't know if any of you saw the movie with Tom Cruise, you know, where they had these
Minority
Report,
right? Yeah. So we're not in the business of pre-crime, and we can't really take an approach of, you know, everybody's guilty until proven innocent. But we can, you know, look at you know, how it's used once it gets put into use. Many of the registrars or companies aren't looking at content at all or how it's used. So, you know, for Sato, I'm not defending that position. I think it was, you know, to avoid having some, you know, high profile, you know, announcement of somebody selling some big, you know, COVID money or people monetizing the current pandemic. But, you know, I think it's difficult to do it in a really elegant way. And I'm not defending going back to PayPal and where this originated for NameBio and for Epic and some of those activities. I think people are trying to do the best they can, but I still encourage it being a little bit more elegant. I mean, to RF's point, if somebody says, hey, we have to take your name down, you at least get noticed as to why, or you get some information about it. it's not just this happened, deal with it, and we won't even tell you how you can address some sort of remedy.
Interesting. I just checked, and it looks like that policy is not quite universal. I just checked the GoDaddy auctions, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, of names with COVID and pandemic. Somebody apparently has a new COVID vaccine.com, and they want 750,000 for it. And yeah, it kind of sets me off when I see that, but obviously it's not very universal. So, let that be said as well.
Are they expiring domains or somebody listed them?
Well, it's in the auctions. It's not expiring domain. Somebody listed. It's like, you can just check. You can just go.
No, because sometimes expired domains are in the auctions. That's why.
Yeah.
Because it would be,
well,
wouldn't be surprising to see a company block, people from adding them, but to allow their own domains get through. But it's just for technical reasons,
Interesting. Yeah, it's a combination of both. Some have, it looks like they've just been listed because I think that one that I just mentioned has like about 80 days to go or something. So obviously somebody just put it in the last week or 10 days.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I'm glad GoDaddy doesn't block those names. Some are fine, It's like
exactly. It all depends on the purpose. Sure.
What's wrong with making a little money, providing companies with good domain names to do good things with? Cito bans covidi.co, but yet I have no problem selling mask.supplies. Why is one name bad and the other is fine to make money off of? Who is to decide that?
I don't think that these decisions are necessarily well thought out. They and maybe not by the right departments too. It's probably just they get a couple of complaints from a couple of people. It goes to the marketing department. Marketing department tells the people who make the lists of filtered names not to allow. So add that, and these big companies. Well, Cito's not that big, but like bigger companies like GoDaddy and some of the big ones. It's often not a decision made by one person. Oftentimes it's like, okay, one person says one thing, and it's like, oh, how do we fix that? And it goes to the next person, and then the next person, and then it goes from like, well, maybe we should do something about some of these names, but then the other person interprets it as, well, we should block these names, and the other person interprets as, okay, I've got to put something in place that will no longer allow these names, whereas it wasn't necessarily the original thought, or it's oftentimes also, it's just, as I said before, it's just sheer laziness. It's easier for them to just do a blanket block than it is to look at things one by one, because they don't want to waste the resources and the man hours or person hours, we'll call it these days, to do it one by one and to look through these things.
Well, it comes on the top of really poor communication practices. For example, Cito's support page hasn't worked in years, for at least not for me, where you can't communicate with them on their own website, and they don't communicate back. They've deprecated their My Cito page, just like after Nick's notification center has turned into a spam inbox. And so when it takes weeks for them to get back to you, if they get back to you at all, the trust level is not there. And in situations like coronavirus, banning names, there needs to be some existing trust level. Otherwise, it just looks like total nihilism.
Yeah.
So, one other optic to look at this through. So RF, I think you say lazy. I would say maybe cheap, right? And looking for efficiencies. Companies do that, right? They want to be able to
automate,
do the thing. But setting that aside, think about this from a whole new perspective. So let's say Cito did nothing, right? Cito does nothing, and the people who absolutely loathe and despise domain investors and the business of holding and selling domains as you develop them have an incredible hook to hang their grief on and trumpet that look at all these scumbags selling COVID names and profiteering off of the the global pandemic and human suffering. In one sense, if you look at it from that optic, that it does reduce that from becoming something. Like there's no hook to hang anything on. If you think of it in terms of it's helping us, I guess that's a way to put a little sugar in the medicine, for lack of, sorry to use the medical term, but I mean, it kind of softens at least the, the approach.
Yeah, I mean, my problem isn't necessarily so much with them blocking some names, it's the method and the lack of communication and the lack of recourse that bothers me more than anything else. You know, if I was able to reach out to somebody and then give me a logical explanation, even if I don't agree with it, I could respect that a little bit more. You know what I mean? And I just have a window for me to argue my point or not. And like, I understand that not everybody's going to agree on where the line should be drawn. I can understand that, and it's the marketplace. But when they don't explain what the line is, and when they don't give you a chance to sort of explain that maybe it's not beyond that line, then that's what bothers me. You know, it's and that's it's, you know, look, we're naming a couple of companies here, but that's everywhere, right? That's anything that's automated, any big system, the big platform. It's just they look, Facebook. You see something that is way beyond the line. Sometimes you report it. Maybe you get something back in 24 hours. Maybe it's a week later. I've had something come back to me 3 weeks later. You know, it's like, no, if you're making money off of that content, you need to be responsible for it, you know? And I'm not saying you need to look at everything line by line, but if somebody goes out of the way to report it, you should, you know, get to it in a timely manner. You know, there's certain responsibilities that as a society, we're letting all these big companies get away with, you know, and it's a larger sort of issue that yeah, it comes down in domains with this stuff and with the PayPal issues, but it's, you know, it's a broader problem of automation and people, you know, just being left out of the equation with no recourse, no appeal, and the worst of all, no explanation in some cases. So anyway,
I think a lot of it comes down to the numbers. I remember I did a keynote at NamesCon earlier this year, and a lot of these big companies we think of as being big, to be quite blunt with you, they're quite small. The exception would be GoDaddy. They're actually quite small companies, and they're running on a shoestring budget. When you really think about the total commissions that are generated by them is between 160 million to say $250 million a year from domain sales across all of them. That's not very much money to run your businesses off, as they look for solutions which are a bit more of a sledgehammer approach, because they don't have the staff and the resources to be able to do some of these things. Like, we're not really in the domain the domain sales space at all. So I'm not talking out of turn here, but the entire ecosystem in domain sales is underwater each year by about $435 million. When you could stack it up against renewals and all that sort of stuff costs. So you're looking at an industry, if you ask me, as much as doing domain sales is great, is under stress. And that's why a lot of these companies, they try to look for solutions which are illogical at times. Like, I don't know why you block any COVID type domains from being sold. It makes no sense, but they look for solutions, and it's an economic imperative here.
Do any of these companies have written policies? Because as Arif said, it just seems all reactional, and it's a resource issue. But is there any written policies in any of these companies about these sort of names?
I think for most of them, it's in a generic, like FAQ, not FAQ, in the terms of service, or TOS. It'll be like, you know, no, it'll be like, you know, something like no domains that, you know, offend, or like they'll use very open language, like that wouldn't necessarily be specific. I don't think there's anything, any companies actually list the names that trigger the event to block. You know, oftentimes it's obvious because we talk about it ourselves, but I mean, I don't think CEDO has a list of words that they block.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Is there an argument to say, because we're not highly regulated in all areas, that these are the sort of things that support large margins on domain names. And if you start going into a real ultra professional and things like this start getting chipped away at year upon year, then the domain name becomes a bit more, domain industry becomes a bit more generalized, and your margins start reducing.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at domains themselves, right? I mean, most registrars, well, not most, but most of the registrars that us as domainers go to sell us domains, and they profit what, 50 cents? You know, the ones that sell for $8.50. There's $8.49 if you have discount club with GoDaddy. Epic is $8.49, I think. Also, there's a few other ones that sell it for $8 something, and their hard cost is, I think they pay VeriSign, was it $7.85? I think it is, and then there's also the ICANN fee of 18 cents. So it's like it's $8, and that has to pay all their back end, all their staff, all this other stuff. So they're making nothing off the domains. What they're making money off of is the upsell. But a lot of these registrars that are domainer specific, they don't get much upsell. Like, I mean, GoDaddy, yeah, they get tons of customers that get the hosting and the emails, and well, not tons, but relatively tons, you know, and that's where they make their profits. But whereas some of these smaller registrars or registrars that cater to just domainers, I mean, they're not making money off of domains. So it's like they look for other solutions. Like, look at Epic last year. They came out with Name Liquidate, so they get a commission off domains that sell there. The auction platforms that they have, the expiration auction platforms, like with Dynadot, what are the ones? I think Namecheap has a expiration auction platform. Epic, well, GoDaddy, obviously. But I mean, those are ways that they make money by having domains. Like, they know that every year X percentage of their domains will go to auction, expiration auction, and out of those, an X percentage will actually be sold, and they'll make X number of dollars from it, which will be on top of what that registration cost was the year before. So all these numbers come in that we don't see, but is it enough to maintain a business? It's tough. Like, I can understand automation being there, but at the same time, I mean, as customers, we have to demand a minimum of communication and clarity, and especially when decisions are being brought upon us in a negative way, like removing our domains from listings and stuff like that, we should have the right to understand why. I mean, it's a different matter. Like GoDaddy, they often don't tell people why they ban them from the auction platforms, but those cases are because there was actual fraud. You know, that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about somebody who puts up a domain that contains, like, again, Leonard, I forget what it was, your domain again, but it was, you know, like, just a very, you know, what was it again, Leonard?
Pandemichealthcare.com.
Yeah, pandemic healthcare. So it's like, it's
quite general.
Nothing wrong with that domain, and I could see it being flagged, but I also would understand Leonard's frustration if he wasn't able to communicate with somebody at a higher level to get a real explanation as to why it was banned, and if they really intended to ban it. If it was just not an algorithm that did a blanket ban, and then they go look at it and they go, oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We're okay with that domain. And that's usually what it is. Like, look what happened with PayPal this week with was it NameBio, right? With Michael and Adam. You know, they got their accounts blocked, and you know, they got lucky. They hit the right person, and they got them blocked. But usually, that's not a solution at PayPal. I know many people who they never get an explanation, and it's just it is what it is, right? So anyhow, I think we've touched on this topic. Anybody else making domain sales this week?
Yeah, let's clear out the chalk dust of the outline of that horse that's dead, right? We've covered that ground, I think, pretty well. Thanks for talking about it. I mean, it's a good discussion. I think this recording will get looked at by a lot of people, you know, because I think we've all shared some good perspectives on things that as people view this on YouTube, we'll be able to go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what the passenger's experience is. As a pilot, it's often, you know, you don't know what's going on in the cabin, right? So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody mentioned the ICA. Yeah, ICA is, you know, I'm a new member there, and I suggest you guys to join. They're involved for stuff like that, with issues with domainers and bigger things too. So anyhow, so nobody else made a sell this week. Me, Paige. That's it.
Well, I had a squad help sale, and I think I mentioned it before. But the funny thing is, roughly a week after they made the first payment, they paid the whole thing off, which is like a bonus. So, what I thought was going to be a 12 equal payments, I got the whole, pretty much the whole thing within 10 days of the initial purchase. So that's pretty cool.
Good.
But I had one thing I wanted to bring up.
Hey, Jason, was that ding? Was that your bank account getting wings?
No, it's his egg timer.
No, that was me getting an iMessage. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
And it probably was an echo of a ding, because it dings on my laptop, it dings on my desktop, and it dings on my phone.
So you were saying, sorry.
Oh, yeah. So another topic I wanted to just bring up and get people's thoughts on were, in the last 3 weeks, there have been 2 3l.com domains that went all the way to drop.
Wow.
And I'm just kind of baffled by how that happens. And I just was going to get anybody's thoughts on it. Now, and just so a little backstory, one of them dropped on the 25th of October, was caught at drop catch, auctioned off because it was contested. Obviously, nobody, we all put in thinking we're going to be the only one to notice, but we know better. And so I was out pretty early. The hammer fell at roughly 92,000 on it, but it was a non-paying bidder, and the re-auction got it to 33,000. Wow. And so that's what, and it hasn't been long enough to know if that sale completes. But then another one dropped today. So the first one was KAU.com. That's Kappa Alpha Uniform .com, and today was LTU Lima Tango Uniform .com. And I'm baffled how anybody doesn't understand the value of that and lets it go to expiration, and was curious if you had any thoughts.
Death. It could be death.
Yeah, it could be died. And there's some registrars that don't have auctions. Like they don't go through, they don't have a contract with like GoDaddy or one of the other ones, and it's just, if it's one of those registrars and the policy of the registrar is not to take any of the domains, or they don't look at the domains, it goes through.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get yeah, absolutely. If it had been a GoDaddy, it would have gone to the auctions and
where they were
up there. But just, I mean, I'm not even talking about how did it not go to an expired auction necessarily, because I understand the mechanics of where it was when it dropped, and the fact that they didn't have an auction process. But I just, and death is obviously one thing, especially if there's a short time period between the death and the expiration. So I guess the rule of thumb is give your the people that are left behind time to get a hold of your account if you have valuable domains, and register your highly valuable domains out a couple of years so that they can figure things out, since they're probably not domainers. But just the simple fact that 2 3Ls dropped in a 3-week period was just mind-boggling to me.
Do you know what website they were at?
Just a mental note, I think these should be registered for at least 5 years in advance, if not the full 10.
Well, we don't know. Maybe they were. Maybe
it could have been. Yeah, and I didn't go to an extreme amount of research. I haven't even looked at to see who had them or what registrar they were, but just the fact that they showed up, seeing a 3L show up when I'm doing my drop list is like,
what
the heck?
I think, Jason, a lot of this is due to mismanagement. I hate to say it, is people just don't keep an eye on their domains as well as you'd think they would, and so these sort of domains drop every now and then. Like we see domains which we know earn $50,000 a year in PPC revenue, and we see them drop. and it happens because the person didn't have them on order, renew, and that sort of stuff, and it just that occurs.
Yeah,
Could be an angry
I
wife.
suppose
Could be an angry wife too. She
Could
just
be.
auto renew off.
Very angry wife.
and there's also times when people lose their emails and it's
Yeah.
just, they don't remember, or a company that closes and there's nobody who's responsible for it anymore, or the email, the domain from the email in question is gone, but the domain is still registered to the company for however many more years, and then if it's 5 years later, well, who knows? Like I checked, I forget what the date is now, but like Nissan.com, there's still a few years left on that one. The person who owned that passed away, I think, earlier this year, and that was the whole big, it was this person versus Nissan, the car company, that was trying to get that domain for the longest time. But now he's passed away. What's going to happen with it? Who knows? But there's still a few more years in that registration. So we'll see.
Yeah. So Michael raised a good question. How do we as investors, because I've recently signed up with ParkLogic and having pretty good success. It's still an experiment. I just have to see if I feel like it's going to affect my my sell-through rate, or decide which ones I'm going to leave on there. But from a standpoint of, I do like the idea. I've got domains that I never would have thought would generate parking revenue, that are paying for themselves many times over the course of a year. If the parking revenue so far, since I think I started in early September, maintains, they're earning like $30 a month, and I'm like, where can I find 1,000 of these? How do we find domains that are going to generate parking revenue? What should we look for? I mean, you obviously have, you mentioned a $50,000 a year domain dropping. I would not know that which one of those was in pending delete. Which of the pending deletes are earning that type of thing? Is there any tips, tricks, things to look for that you can say, or is it just pure luck that you happen to stumble across that?
No, it's not luck. It's there's a number of ways you can actually find traffic domains. One is you can buy a portfolio of them, and depending upon the nature of the domains themselves, for instance, their backlink domains, the revenue will decline over time versus like natural typing. But typically you're paying about 2 years revenue for those. And there are portfolios of domains that come up for sale on a regular basis. You can pick up the odd domain, say even in the forums. That can be quite risky because typically people will try to inflate their numbers. Or you can develop technology. There's a lot of technologies which are leading indicators for whether a domain will get traffic. Once again, typically speaking, the domains that have traffic aren't the ones you expect they will have traffic. As an example, a lot of the single word generic domains, they don't have very much traffic. Right. But you'll get a domain like michaelscowsathome.com will suddenly have a whole heap of traffic because it could have been an expired website that's been dropped and business no longer active, but there's a lot of backlinks to it or something. So so there's a few hints of how you can find domains with traffic. It's not luck. It's definitely not luck. The thing to be wary of is that some of the auction platforms, marketplaces, they'll tell you like how much traffic a domain has, quotation mark traffic. Mm-hmm. They're typically not traffic numbers, they're actually DNS requests. Ultimately, what you're actually after is, what you're looking for is real humans. Yeah.
Okay.
So the DNS request could be like an image request. It could be an API request. That's not a real human. Yeah. So the developing the technology, I remember back in about 2001, we had some technology. It was very, very simple. It basically hammered the guts out of Overture, and we were finding, I don't know, thousands of domains that had the propensity to have traffic every single day. And we would just register them. And we, in the end, made a lot of money. The other thing is .com is basically being strip mined. So, and you've got some very sophisticated people in .com. The CCTLD space is the place to make the money, guys. Like, and it's still a lot of those CCs are virgin territory. I made all my money in CCs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So, anybody else have anything interesting happening this week?
Yeah, I just have a question about just going back to parking. From the flip side of the typical user, like now that the internet's mature enough where people use Google or paid search, what does the average user look like that is still clicking on PPC ads to the enough times where people can still make a decent living out of it? Are they old? Are they young? Are they from emerging markets? Are they just lazy people just kind of clicking on what's presented to them?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And if you look at the baby boomers that are going through, they tend to be older, and there's a lot of them, and they still click on anything, down to the younger ones, which will also click on anything. I remember quite a number of years ago, this was when my kids were younger. They came to me, my daughters came to me and said, my computer's no longer working. And I went up, and I looked like their browser window would have been the size of a postage stamp because they had installed so many flipping plugins into their systems by clicking on things all the time and just doing stuff. Yeah, so, but on the other hand, yeah, if you think about it, if we look at a traditional park page versus, say, direct advertising networks, a traditional park page is essentially a search. So if you're presented with something that you say, yeah, that's actually what I'm after, and I recognize that company, why wouldn't you click? Because it is a search. And that's why Google did some research many years ago of the effectiveness of domain parking versus search traffic, and they found domain parking is actually more effective for advertisers, which is quite an interesting thing. Yeah.
Well, okay, thank you.
People make the deliberate intent to click on something. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm lately I've been watching a little bit more YouTube videos than I have in the past, and it's like the amount of ads that come up there that I don't pay attention to, or that repeat and repeat and repeat the same ones. I'm like, it's like a car commercial I'll see, 10 times a day. And it's like, well, I have no intent of buying a car. And this company just paid for 10 ads. It's like, how much money are they burning for that? It's just, with the parking, so usually if somebody clicks on it, it's because they have the intent of learning more about something, right? So that's
yeah, I think the other thing is a lot of these questions are really genuine good questions, and I try to answer them all in mcl.club masterclass lessons, looking at how to make money and understanding the whole monetization side of the industry, and so they're very common questions as well. So yeah, keep on asking them.
Yeah.
I think you've got to, with regards to adverts and stuff like that, I think we're working on stuff to try and make the advert look like the page so that it doesn't look like an advert. And I think that's more the way, if you look at newspaper websites and stuff like that just now, they're atrocious. With too many ads and everything else, and click here and click there. And I think the consumer, I think the way that we're trying to do stuff is to, for next year and stuff like that, is to make the ad look like the page, so that it's blended into the page where it doesn't look like an advert. And then just with the button there, just for them to click it discreetly. And that's the sort of thing that we're trying to do for next year, is to make it very, very blendable. And not in your face, but subtle and discreet sort of thing. And that's what we're working on at the moment for next year.
I mean, that's already the way it is for a lot of these clickbait sites, right? You do something, it's like, oh, I'll go check that, boom, and then next thing you know, it's one page, and the article's like that, and it's like 25 parts, and you click the next one, but it's surrounded by 50 ads per page. Well,
that's to me the one advert on the page.
Yeah.
Just the one advert on the page that's subtle. It's got the photographs, it's got content, it's got everything else.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it still leads to that customer who's paying for that page. Like the clickbait ones, like you say, with a dozen photographs here and all these other things popping up, it's just a nightmare. I think advertisers are looking for a wee bit better quality instead of 50 advertisers or 20 advertisers on the one page. I think there's going to be a subtle change with advertisers wanting real things and wanting it done where it goes with their brand and not just anywhere. I think there's going to be a subtle change with regards to that.
Yeah, or they'll just go back to pop-ups.
So Arif, I noticed something about those like multi-page, that it seems like they lazy load some of the ad graphics so that the click the next button moves around vertically, and so you think you're clicking on that, but then the image with the ad loads, or an image pushes it down to where where you were targeting your click becomes an actual click. I wonder how often that happens, and I don't doubt it's probably a deliberate thing.
Well, yeah, it's probably going against the terms of the advertising, but it is what.
I mean, they can't control latency, right? I mean, if the images are taking longer to load, a click is a click. It'd probably be the response you could get, right?
They're short-term business models. They'll get washed out, that sort of thing, over time. If you ask me, it's like trying to trick the consumer into doing something is not a business model. I'm all for what Tommy's suggesting. It is a real integration of so the advertiser becomes more helpful than I've tricked you to click.
Yeah, or like the even those sites that have like top 10 of something, and they're not objective because they have affiliate links, right? And they'll list them 1 to 10 in order of the commission percentage instead of actual trial, what it is. But at least they try to put some content there, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me if it's transparent. And like, it's a little bit more transparent to me because I know what to look for. Like I see sites like that and I understand it's affiliate marketing, but I think most of the general population don't. And they just go, oh, number one. Yeah, number one is because this guy checked all these other sites and he listed as number one. I'm like, no. He's listing as number one because that's what the highest sell-through rate times cost per click or whatever commission it is results in, so it's but yeah.
Arif, can I answer a question just to those people doing domain sales for a second?
Yeah, sure.